Hi and welcome back. So last time we looked at Intro to Maps. We looked at types of maps, we looked at types of spatial data, and we looked at how maps lie through distortions and exclusions. And today we are looking at geographic data. So this is 1.2 and 1.3. So our tidbit of the day is that the term mad as a hatter refers to that hat makers went insane because they had mercury poisoning. So if you are familiar with Alice in Wonderland and the Mad Hatter, that's what it's coming from, or that's what it's referring to. Okay, so our objectives today are to identify different methods of geographic data collection and to explain the geographic effects of decisions made using geographical information. So how do we make decisions using that data? So first up, we are going to look at identifying different methods of geographic data collection. So first off, how is data gathered? Now, largely this is gathered through field work and field observations. And this is essentially when somebody goes to a place and they record firsthand the information. Now, this could be done through written accounts, it can be travel narratives, it can be media reports, policy documents, interviews, photographs, landscape analysis, which we're going to do some of. It could be video, all kinds of stuff. And make sure you check out this bit on the side and look at what fieldwork involves. So pause that. One example of fieldwork is the US Census, and in 2020 this is a census year. Census in the United States is mandated by the Constitution, and it is an example of an organization, in this case the US government, going in and doing fieldwork. So why do we have it? Well, one of the most important reasons is that the census allows us to have our most accurate as possible, because they're not perfect, but our most accurate count of the population, and therefore we are better able to do things like include representative districts, know how many we need. And that allows us to have a more representative democracy. So if we have a better understanding of how many people live here, we can better represent them in the government. It also tells us how much public funding needs to be distributed to schools. So we get our funding from federal money, and law enforcement and fire departments, and for highways and infrastructure. All of these things come basically from tax dollars, but those tax dollars go to the government, and then the government allocates them. And finally, we make personal government and business decisions based on the census, where people are located, who is located where a lot of the times. But those things are really important to many governments, many businesses, and many people for different decisions. So how do we collect data? One of the major ways is through various geospatial technologies. So we could go in and just look at things, but also we have a lot of tools that help us do it. And we split them down into a few different things. One of our big ones is GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And this sounds similar, but is different than GPS, which are global positioning systems or satellite navigation systems. We also have remote sensing, and we have online mapping and visualizations. So different businesses, organizations, individuals, government agencies use all of these tools to help them make decisions. So the first one we're looking at is GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And when you think GIS, what I want you to think is layers. So this is a computer software or system that is capturing, storing, analyzing, and displaying information from multiple digital maps or from multiple data sets. Basically, we're taking a whole bunch of things and layering them together to create a new map. And we might have thematic or physical layers on here. And like if we look here, we could see the land usage, we could see elevation, those are going to be different physical layers, but then we have thematic things like the parceling, potentially the streets, the customers, who is where, what is where, on a thematic sense to kind of figure out where we want to put new things. And we can use this for a whole bunch of different stuff. So we could use it for the analysis of crime data. We could look at it to map corona hotspots and draw correlations. We can look at the effects of pollution we could look at it for urban planning. There's a ton of different uses for GIS. Here we're looking at the analysis of crime data. So we're going to look and see where is the most data, where is the least data, and what are the types. So GPS is the global positioning system, or the satellite navigation system. It's the same thing. This is what we pull up in Google Maps on our phones to figure out how to get to places, or they have those little GPS things just by themselves that you might go out if you're using, or might use if you're going out hiking or something. So with GPS, we have satellites orbiting the Earth all the time, and they are communicating locational information back to GPS receivers, in this case my phone, that can tell me exactly where I am at any given moment. So if you take your phone and you pop on Google Maps, and then you walk outside your house, you can watch your little dot move. And especially if you start moving down the street, it's very, very precise. Remember that precision means absolute location. It's telling you exactly where you are. And we use this primarily for navigational purposes, so ships, cars, and aircraft. We also use, related to this, aerial photography. So we have professional images that are captured by planes and drones. They go up and they take pictures of stuff. And we might see pictures like this. So in this case, we are looking at, earlier this year, there were a whole lot of tornadoes in Tennessee, and we are looking at the befores and afters, except for they're backwards on here. So on the right-hand side, we have the befores, and on the left-hand side, we have the afters. So we're looking at the devastation these tornadoes caused and seeing how much damage there is. What do we need to go to first? Where is there the most need? That's part of that decision making. Where do we put our recovery efforts? Because that is time and money and potentially lives if it's done poorly. And this is the same thing, just another image, but before on the right hand side, after on the left hand side, so we can tell how severe is the damage. Where do we need to go first? All right, next up we have remote sensing. So remote sensing is the use of cameras or other sensors that are mounted on aircraft or satellites. They orbit the Earth above the atmosphere and collect digital images of the Earth's surface. So it's really similar to what we were just looking at with the aerial photography, but farther out than that. So one of the things that we look at with this is weather. If you've ever seen the images of hurricanes, we also look for environmental changes. We monitor them, like things like the polar ice caps melting, sea levels rising, stuff like that. But one of the other things that we have been able to do with this is look at the growth of North Korean prison camps. So these are human rights abuses, and organizations like Amnesty International monitor these. Here what we've seen is that these prison camps, which shouldn't exist to start with, are actually growing. And we've just seen this again very recently in China in the last few days, where we have been able to look at remote sensing images to see that the Uyghur concentration camps are much more numerous and much larger than we were led to believe. And that's it. It's the whole thing. So again, we were able to identify different methods of geographic data collection and or explain the geographic effects of decisions made using the geographical information. So how do we make decisions based on that? Just a reminder, if you struggle with anything, go back and watch it again. That's part of why we're doing these videos, is so you can take your time with them. Make sure your notes are good, and when you are all finished and feel comfortable with it, go back in or go and take the quiz. If you do poorly on the quiz, go back and watch it again. See what you missed. Make sure you're doing your reading, because that's going to fill in the things that we don't cover in the videos and will help increase your understanding. And that's it for the day. Bye.